What's up, millionaires in the making? Welcome back to another episode of the MITM Podcast, where we unlock success daily by journeying through the 6 pillars. I am your host, Tye Aarons, the founder of the MITM Club. And today, we're talking about how standards under pressure reveal real character. With that being said, run my intro.
Caught up in them bright lights, lost in shiny things that's golden. Everything ain't always what it seems, that it's soaking. Chasing my dreams, coming apart at my seams. Best believe that the money is the motive.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the MITM Podcast. And standards under pressure is really what's going to show you what you're made of. And it's crazy that this is the topic for today, because the last 2 weeks for me put me under some crazy, insane pressure. It's like everything in life was really testing me, and I'm glad I made it through it. But I really can see the spaces that I was falling short, and the areas where my standards were not as high or as strong as I thought they were. Pressure exposes your true priorities. When conditions are comfortable, many people can maintain high standards. Pressure changes the environment. Time constraints, emotional stress, financial uncertainty, or social expectations begin competing with those standards. And I can 100% tell you that I was tested with each and every one of these things. Oh my gosh. Now, psychological research shows that stress forces the brain to rely more on core values and ingrained habits rather than deliberate reasoning. In other words, pressure reveals what is actually internalized, not what is merely aspirational. Now, habits surface when cognitive capacity drops. Under stress, the brain's executive function weakens. This means people rely more heavily on automatic behavior patterns rather than conscious decision making. If strong habits and standards exist, those habits stabilize behavior under pressure. If they do not, behavior becomes reactive. In the last 2 weeks, I could tell you, the habits that really showed up for me were working out. They were making music. And even for some of them, I'm just going to share this with y'all. I had to renew my site, and I had so many things financially happening at the same time. My site's only like about $3,000 per year. That's like all in every single plug and every single thing that I need. And I know it's happening every single year. But although I planned for, there's all these other things that popped up, and I almost slipped into old patterns. I almost went back to that hustle and grinding culture to try to make ends and make sure everything lined up the way that it needs to. And thankfully, I've developed far enough to be able to see the habits and the old patterns coming back. And I've been able to really lean on and trust in my creator more to know that everything is as it should be. That the standards that I have should not be moved, right? Like I don't work for minimum wage, guys. But sometimes when I get really, really stressed, my old habit of saying, okay, I'm just going to go do this. I'm going to go flip that. I got to hustle a little bit. I got to take on some. I'm like, nah. We're not doing that. Pressure, it doesn't create the character. It doesn't create the character you are. It just reveals the habits that are already installed. And it's a really, really great opportunity, no matter what pressure that you're under, to be able to say, hey, I wanted to be this person. I wanted to grow into this type of person. Now this pressure is here just to test it, Now, stress amplifies moral and behavioral trade-offs. Pressure often introduces competing incentives like short-term release versus long-term integrity, convenience versus discipline. Research in behavioral ethics shows that stressful environments increase the likelihood of ethical fading, where people justify compromising their standards. Individuals with clearly defined standards are more likely to resist these compromises. Character becomes visible when trade-offs appear. Now, identity becomes a stabilizing force. And this is why in my book, Stop Drifting, the identity, the pillar of the self, is such a huge part of the book. It's such a massive aspect of the book, because without identity, what do you have? Without a strong self, what do you have? Identity-based motivation research shows that when individuals strongly identify with a value, such as discipline, responsibility, or integrity, they're more likely to maintain consistent behavior even under adverse conditions. When identity and standards align, pressure does not easily destabilize behavior. Identity acts as a psychological anchor. Can't speak today. Jeez. Now, long-term thinkers maintain standards during short-term discomforts. Individuals who operate with a long-term time horizon are less likely to compromise standards for immediate relief. They evaluate decisions not just by the immediate outcome, but by how the decision aligns with the trajectory that they want to maintain. Pressure invites shortcuts. Long-term thinking protects standards. And, well, it makes life so much easier when you're not thinking in weeks and years, but decades. Standards are easy in comfort, and they're tested in pressure. Pressure doesn't create character. It reveals what has been practiced. Comfort hides alignment, while pressure exposes it. And once you know this core framework, once you really apply this vision or these concepts to your life, you can see how things start to shift and how things start to change. Now, that wraps up today's episode of the MITM Podcast. I'd love to hear from y'all's. What are some things that have been putting pressure on you recently? What are some things that have been making it a little more difficult for you to show up the way you need to show up? What are some wins you left? What are some tests or some pressure that you overcame and you've seen the habits that you've wanted to develop change? I want to hear all of it. Drop it in the comments down below, guys, and share this with someone who has been struggling under some pressure, and ask them who it's been showing them or who it shows them that they are. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Give 'em that creme